The morning was quiet. The sky was still half dark. A cold wind moved through the tall grass. The land was wide, empty, and dry. There were no birds singing, only silence. Toma rode slowly on her old pony. The pony limped with every step. It was tired, just like her. Toma had lived alone in the hills for many years. Her black braids were thin now. Her face had hard lines. Her shoulders were strong, but her heart had grown quiet. People in town called her strange. Some said she was dangerous. Others said she was waiting to die. Maybe they were right. She didn't speak much. She didn't smile. She hunted when she had to. She lit fires only when it got too cold. Her life was simple and empty. She was not looking for anything that day, but something found her. As she passed a rusty old fence on the edge of the plains, she saw something that made her stop. At first, she thought it was a scarecrow. Then she saw blood. A boy, tied to the fence with barbed wire. Arms pulled tight behind. Him, like someone tried to break him. His head hung down. His back was bent like he was made of sticks. His skin was dry. His lips were cracked. His face was covered in dirt and dried blood. His eyes were barely open. He had no shoes, no bag, no weapon, no name. He was just breathing, barely. Above him, 3 buzzards sat on the fence, waiting, watching. One more flew in slow circles above. They were not afraid. No animal was. Because they thought he was already dead, but Toma knew he was not. Something in her chest moved, something deep and buried. She had not felt it in years. Her hand reached for the reins. She stopped her pony. Toma did not stop for most things. But this was different. She climbed off the pony slowly. Her legs hurt, but she didn't care. She stepped toward the boy, careful not to scare him. He didn't move, he didn't even blink. She knelt down beside him. His arms were tied so tight that blood had dried into the wire. His shoulders were swollen and purple. She moved her hand slowly, carefully. She began to loosen the wire. She didn't speak yet. She didn't even breathe loud. When the last piece of wire fell, his body dropped forward. She caught him. Still no sound. Still no fight. Just breathing. She opened her water bag and poured a little on a cloth. She touched it to his lips. His mouth moved. A sound came out. Small, broken. She leaned closer. "What?" she asked softly. His voice cracked again, but no words came, just breath. So she spoke instead. "You're not dead," she said in Comanche. Her voice was calm. "That means you're still meant to be something." The boy didn't answer, but she saw something in his eyes. A small spark, like he had heard her. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't care. Not yet. She took a blanket from her saddlebag, wrapped it around his shoulders. Then she picked him up, slowly, like he was made of glass. She carried him over her shoulder, back to the pony. She tied her bow across her back. Then, without looking back at the fence, she rode home. The boy did not speak. He did not cry. His head rested on her shoulder like a sleeping child. But Toma's eyes stayed on the sky, and the buzzards watched her ride away. Toma's hut stood alone by a cold creek. Trees covered it, and stones made the walls strong. The roof was low. Smoke rose from the chimney only when she lit the fire. That day, smoke rose again. She carried the boy inside. He was still alive, just barely. His face was pale, his eyes half open but empty. She laid him on a deerskin near the fire. Then she sat beside him and started her work. She didn't expect him to live, but she worked like he would. She boiled water. She ground herbs with stone. She tore soft cloth from old clothes. She cleaned, the blood from his face first, wiping gently, slow and careful. She whispered no words, just moved like a mother might with a sick child. Her hands didn't shake. When she cut away his shirt, her heart stopped for a moment. There were scars. Not from that day. Older scars. long, thin lines across his back and chest, some from belts, some from chains. Some looked like burns. They weren't fresh, but they told the truth. This boy had been hurt many times. She sat back watching him breathe. He looked no older than 18, but his body looked like it had survived a war. He coughed once. His eyes blinked open. He tried to speak, but only a dry sound came out. She lifted his head and pressed a spoon of warm water to his lips. He drank, then closed his eyes again. "Why would someone do this to a boy?" she whispered, not expecting an answer. That night, she kept the fire going. She watched over him like a shadow. She didn't sleep. She listened to the wind. "Coyotes," cried far away. The boy turned in his sleep, arms twitching. Once he cried out. A soft sound, broken, scared. But she didn't touch him. She just stayed close. By morning, his fever had dropped. When he opened his eyes again, he looked around the small room, confused. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough like sand. "You're not dead," Toma said in English this time. The boy stared at her, confused. "Why'd you help me?" he asked. She looked at him. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. "Because you looked like you didn't care if I helped or not." He blinked. He didn't know how to answer that. So he closed his eyes again. 2 days passed. Toma fed him, broth with a horn spoon. She gave him small pieces of soaked bread. He vomited once. She held his head. She said nothing when he cried. On the third night, he asked a question. "Why'd they leave me like that?" Toma was quiet. She looked into the fire. The answer was clear, but she didn't speak it. He already knew. He stared at the flames, tears shining in his eyes. He didn't cry loud, but Toma could hear the pain inside him. On the 5th day, he tried to stand. His legs shook. He fell hard. He cursed, hit the ground with his fist. Not at her, at himself. "I'm not weak," he muttered. Toma didn't move. "Then stop proving you are," she said softly. He looked at her. There was no anger in her voice, just truth. He sat on the ground, breathing hard. He looked at his hands, bruised, scraped, but healing. He looked at her. "I don't have a name," he said. She didn't look surprised. "Everyone had a name once," she said. "My folks called me Boy. The ranchers called me Half-Breed. My master—" He stopped. He looked away. Toma didn't ask him to finish. "You were born. You lived. You bled," she said. "So you deserve a name." He looked at her, surprised. "You going to give me one?" She shook her head. "No. But if you earn it, I'll tell you when I hear it." For a long time he was silent. Then for the first time he nodded. The days passed like slow-moving clouds. The boy was no longer dying. He could sit up now. He could drink without help. By the 7th day he walked without falling. His steps were weak, but his spirit was growing stronger. He began to help Toma, with small things and gathering firewood, pulling water from the creek, cleaning the hut floor. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was clearer. He asked questions. "Why do you stack the firewood in that shape? Why do you whistle to the birds? Why do you sleep with your back to the wall?" Toma didn't mind. She answered when she felt like it. She didn't teach him everything, just enough to make him listen. One morning, he brought her clean water and sat beside her as she sharpened a knife. "I don't believe in spirits," he said. "You don't have to," she said, "but it helps if you listen like you might." He smiled, not big, not fake, just a small, honest smile. It was the first one she had seen. But peace never lasts long. Later that day, just as the sky turned orange and the fire cracked in the hearth, someone knocked on the hut door. Not a soft knock, a loud, hard kick. Boom, boom, boom. Toma didn't move. Her hands froze, the boy's eyes widened. His whole body tensed. "What is it?" he whispered. Toma looked at the door. Her voice was calm. "Old noise," she said. She stood up, took a breath, and stepped outside. Two men waited. One sat on a horse, holding a double-barrel shotgun across his lap. The other stood on the ground. His face was wide, beard red, his boots too clean for country life. He spit in the dirt when he saw Toma. "You her?" the red-bearded man asked. Toma didn't answer. "You got something inside that don't belong to you," he said. She stayed still. "The boy," he snapped. "He's not yours." "I never said he was," she said. "Well, he ain't nobody's no more. That's what the wire was for." The man on the horse laughed. "You took in a rabid dog, Comanche." Toma's face didn't change. "I've seen rabid dogs," she said. "They foam. They bite. That boy just breathes." "He stole from us," the man shouted. "Ran off with a bottle and a horse." "Then you should have killed him clean," Toma said. The man's voice dropped. Low. "Didn't think he'd crawl away, didn't plan on some witch woman pulling him from the dirt." The shotgun moved slightly, not aimed yet, but the threat was clear. Inside the hut, the boy stood behind the door, his whole body shaking. Not with fear, with something else, something hot, something rising. He reached for Toma's old blade. It was dull but sharp enough, his hands gripped it tight. He stepped outside, heart pounding like a drum. "If you touch her," he said, loud and clear, "I'll gut you where you stand." Both men turned, surprised. The boy stood barefoot, still bruised, still thin, but something burned in his eyes, not fear, not rage, something stronger. Purpose. The red-bearded man stared at him. "You don't scare me, boy." "You think I forgot the nights you tied me up behind the barn?" the boy said. "You think I forgot what your boots felt like on my ribs?" The man stepped forward. Toma raised her hand. "Try," she said softly. Silence. The man looked at the boy, looked at Toma, then spit in the dirt again. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "He's no good." Toma didn't blink. "Then he fits just fine out here." The two men turned. They rode away without another word. When they were gone, the boy dropped the blade. His legs shook. He looked at Toma. "I thought I was going to fall," he said. "But you didn't," she answered. He stared at the ground. "I never stood up for anyone before, not even myself." "You did now," she said. The fire behind them cracked louder. The wind had changed. So had he. The night was quiet again. The men were gone. The fire burned low. The boy sat beside it, his hands still shaking from what he had done. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. He was breathing. Stronger than before. Toma sat across from him, sharpening her knife slowly. She didn't speak, neither did he. But something had changed. He had stood, he had spoken, and he had not run. He looked at her from across the fire. "They'll come back," he said. Toma nodded. "Maybe." "You're not scared?" "No," she said. "They only know how to hurt. They don't know how to heal. That makes them small." The boy looked down at his hands. "I was nothing. To them, a tool, a dog, less than a shadow. But not now," she said. He stayed quiet for a while, thinking. Then he said, "I still don't have a name." Toma didn't smile, but her eyes were soft. "You think names come from people?" "I don't know where they come from," he said. "They come from moments," she said. "From choices. From pain. From standing when your knees shake." He looked at the fire again. "I was just a boy. I didn't matter. You matter now." He nodded, then looked at her again. "Will you give me one?" Toma stood up. She walked over to a basket and pulled out a small black stone. It was flat and shaped like a heart. She handed it to him. "This belonged to my brother," she said. "He died a long time ago. He never gave up, even when he knew he would lose." The boy held the stone in his hand. It was warm from the fire. "You remind me of him," she said. "But you are not him. You are something new." He waited. She stepped back, looked at him for a long moment. Then she said it. Sani. The word floated in the air like smoke. What does it mean? He asked. Second son, she said. Not by blood, but by heart. He felt the word in his chest. It was small and simple, but it fit. Sani, he said softly, testing it. She nodded. You earned it. That night he slept without fear. No nightmares. No shaking. Just sleep. In the morning, he woke early and went to the creek. He washed his face, cleaned his arms. He stood taller. He no longer looked like a ghost. He looked like a boy becoming a man. Days passed. Toma taught him how to hunt rabbits with a sling, how to fish with only his hands, how to read the wind and listen to the birds. He learned fast. He listened. He laughed sometimes, not loud, but real. One day he carved a new fire pit. She watched him shape it with care, just like hers. You've been watching, she said. Always, he said. You saved me. She shook her head. No, you saved yourself. I just gave you space to do it. One evening, a rider came by. Not one of the cruel men, on just a traveler. He passed slow, tipped his hat to Toma. Who's that boy with you? He asked. Toma looked at the boy, then back at the man. That's Sani, she said. He belongs here. The man nodded. Strong name. When the rider left, the boy smiled. He looked at Toma with something new in his eyes. Pride. Thank you, he said. She nodded. But deep inside, she was no longer lonely. She didn't say it out loud. She didn't need to. She wasn't waiting to die anymore. Because someone had come into her life not asking for anything, but needing everything. And he had become someone worth saving, not because of what he lost, but because of what he chose to become.